Now, Remy. Okay. When the other panelists enter, we need to promote as a panelist. What? No, just you see two charts, attends and panelists, right?
Beg your pardon? You're talking to me?
He was trying to talk to me, I think, explain me something, but
I thought you were talking to me.
So welcome, Mr. Montout. So glad to see you.
Thank you.
We are sorry for the delay there.
Yeah, that's okay.
But
Remy, please talk with me through Zoom. Just for example, Honorable Albina is here. Can you accept be a panelist, please?
But I don't see anything. Panelist, okay. So what panelist, attendee?
You need to promote them as
So
a panelist.
How do I do? Allow to talk.
Just 3 points.
Promote, okay. Promote right? Panelist, okay.
Yes, just to promote.
Okay, I got it. Oh, I see Barbara.
Hola, buenas. Sí, no era para ver si estabas en la casa, pero ya no. Ok. 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 Estoy ocupado ahorita. Chao.
Madam President, thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, Mr. Topia. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm so sorry for the trouble like that.
That's quite okay. That's quite. Let me increase my volume just a little bit. I think it's a little low here.
No llego hoy. Okay.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining, taking the time.
You're most welcome.
Your secretary has been very persistent to try to reach out to you, yes?
Yes, I was not aware of the change in time, and
of course it came late, so you had already left office. Yeah, I know.
Yes, I wanted to get home and get ready.
Right.
Yes, so she did send a message to say that it was a little late. So when I logged in at 5:45.
Yeah, sorry for that. Yeah.
That's okay. That's right. You're right. Good evening to everybody else.
Yes, we are still waiting for others. There is Mr. Montout here.
Yes, good evening, sir.
Hi, good evening. How are you doing?
I am good, and you?
I'm doing fine.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's a little dark here somehow. It changes. It's a little better. Were you able to get the others to inform them of the delay?
Yes, finally I could reach everyone, yes.
Okay, wonderful.
Yes.
Remy, can you say if some panelists is in the attendees room?
Yes. If you are a panelist, please. There is
Let me just.
I don't see any panelists right now.
Okay.
Change the name if you're a panelist. Please let us know you're a panelist. Yeah. Put the name on your. Change the name.
Welcome, Adrian.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Sure.
Tres razones para reunirse con los misioneros en la Iglesia de Jesucristo de los Santos de los Últimos Días.
Miguel.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening,
Good
Madam
evening, sir.
President.
Good evening.
Good evening, Ms. Mayers. Good evening. Good evening, Dr. O'Shea.
Honorable Hippolyte, welcome.
Good evening.
Dr. Rigobert, welcome.
Hello, thank you. How are you?
Good to see everyone. So we are missing just Dr. Jean. Is Dr. Jean there?
That's better, Dr. Gail.
Thank you.
Mr. Hippolyte, we need to see a little more of you. Good evening.
Yes.
Right.
Great.
Right, that's better. Thank you. Minister Montut, same for you. Just a little more.
Yes.
Great.
It's very beautiful group.
Yeah, Dr. Auger is not on video.
What's that, Honorable Guy Mayers? What you saying about me?
Saying I'm not seeing you, you're hiding.
Trust me, I'm doing a million things.
I
The
report,
audio, you don't want the video.
Why not?
I report you to Brother Joaquin.
No problem.
Who are we missing?
Just Dr. Jean, Alison Jean.
I will try to make connection with her. So just give me a second. I will try to connect with her.
Yes, please.
Adrian, can you turn on your camera, please?
What do you say, yes, sir?
Adrian, if he can turn off his camera.
I think Dr. Adrian, so okay, yeah, it's fine like that's good.
Hello.
That's better, yes. And put horizontal, it's a self, yeah, like that, yeah, good. Good. Eliezer, it's the wrong page. Wrong title.
What?
You put God and the family, the foundation for peace. It was this morning now. Finished.
Ah, okay, sorry. Es que I lost your video.
Ah, okay.
Brother Jean should be coming on anytime.
Okay, good.
He should be joining in us anytime now.
All right. When I see her, I will bring her in because
Okay.
she will. Here we have panelists, and then when she try to join, she will be just an attendee. We have to bring her in. So I'm looking.
Yes. Remy, but we can start when she enter. We also can. Remy,
Yes.
we can start anytime. When she enter,
Yes.
just we promote her as a panelist, but
Okay.
she keep the term because, you know,
Mhm.
we can start with the first panelist, the second panelist.
Okay.
If she can late, we can move the next. Just let me know when you want to start. It's okay.
So, okay, she's here now, just a moment. Okay. Good. Look, at the beginning, you show all the panelists, how you do, Elisa.
Yes, yes.
So you can put all the panelists and then we'll start. And everybody is here now.
Everybody's here.
Yes. Should we start now? You record?
Yes, maybe we can start now.
Okay, so Mr. Mayer, we can start now.
Good evening to our panelists, honorable panelists, and those who have joined this webinar this evening. I first want to express my thanks and appreciation to Mr. Remy Topier for inviting me to be the moderator for this evening's program. This program tonight follows on the heels of the webinar this morning, which involved the persons or representatives of the religious members in St. Lucia. And today being celebrated or recognized as World Peace Day by the United Nations, it's apt that we can meet and share our views on the theme that is selected. This is interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universally shared values as a foundation for peace in our nation. So we heard from the religious community this morning, and this evening we're hearing from our parliamentarians on the issue. I would now like to invite Mr. Remy Topier, the director of the Universal Peace Federation in St. Lucia. He is originally from France and has been living in St. Lucia with his family for over 26 years now. He has 3 children and he now has 3 grandchildren that have been associated with Mr. Topier for quite a long time now, having been ambassador for peace, I think since 2004 or thereabouts. So it's my privilege to request that Mr. Topier make some opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Meyers. Good evening to everyone.
Good
Good
evening.
evening to our panelists. We have an excellent panelist tonight. That's very happy that we can all gather around this platform. The 21st of September is always every year. It's a day celebrated as the International Day of Peace. So on this day, there are always many activities all around the world. And especially the Universal Peace Federation has to do also things. So many chapters of the Universal Peace Federation around the world are also doing some events. The theme, the United Nations theme for the International Day of Peace is action for peace, our ambition for the global goals. As you know, the United Nations also has 17 global goals that are the target for all the nations of the world to try to reach for 2025. And I would like to read an excerpt from the United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres. He is saying, peace is needed today more than ever. War and conflict are unleashing devastation, poverty and hunger, and driving tens of millions of people from their homes. Climate chaos is all around, and even peaceful countries are gripped by gaping inequalities and political polarization. So this depicts quite a dark picture. And sometimes I wonder if the United Nations has any hope even to be able to do something. So we have to realize that also to fulfill the global goals that the United Nations has designed, in fact, most of those goals need to be able to advance in fulfilling those goals. It needs to improve the qualities of the human beings. More than half, it's a question of quality of human beings. It cannot be solved just by better technology. For example, when we speak of no poverty, it's really a problem of relation and caring for each other. The second global goal is zero hunger. Zero hunger too is a problem also that can be solved only when really human beings get a better quality and care for each other. Number 11 is reduced inequalities. This also can be solved only with better human beings. So in fact, we have to realize unless we can improve the quality of human beings, we will not be able to really advance so much. So when we speak of quality, we mean the ability to relate well with each other, to care for each other in everything we do. And so in our nation, on the national level, we can say this is also the question, how we can improve the citizens of St. Lucia, all of us, how we can become better citizens, bring better contribution for the nation. And so our discussion this evening is quite broad and try to see the higher picture. What brings all the people of St. Lucia together, what can unite, is really their love for St. Lucia. What unites all of us is the love we have for St. Lucia. This is what really allow this nation to strive and also allow all the people of the nation to cooperate, to work together. And this evening, especially with the parliamentarian or government persons and persons also from both political parties. So the goal is really how we can cooperate together, how we can really discuss of the problem of the nation, not to try to have the last word, but really centered on the same love for the nation. We can listen to each other, respect each other, and cooperate together. So I'm very grateful for all the panelists this evening, and I would like to really ask all those who are also joining us to give a round of applause to our panelists. This is exceptional to have such a panel like that. It's very rare. So thank you very much for all of you panelists to take your time. I know you are all busy persons, and welcome. Feel at home in this webinar, and we are listening to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Topier, for setting the stage for our dialogue tonight. And to give a little background on the International Association of Parliamentarians for Peace. The International Association of Parliamentarians for Peace is a project of the Universal Peace Federation. Since its inception, the Universal Peace Federation has worked closely with parliamentarians around the world to build a world of lasting peace based on universal principles. Parliamentarians play a central role in nations throughout the world, representing the people, respecting the rule of law, and upholding human rights. In effect, parliamentarians work to build safe, secure, stable, and peaceful societies. IAPP has been launched as an international forum where parliamentarians can share their experience and wisdom in search for solutions to our world and national problems. Parliamentarians from around the world have offered their remarks on the importance of their work and the value of increased cooperation and collaboration in the search for innovative solutions to some of the critical issues that we face on the local, national, regional, and global levels, from climate change to the rise of extremist ideologies to humanitarian disasters and conflict. IAPP works in cooperation and synergy with the Interreligious Association for Peace and Development that takes into account the spiritual dimension of our human identity, experience, and interactions. And as I said earlier, we heard from the religious group this morning, and now we are going to be hearing from the fellow parliamentarians. So we have represented on our panel tonight a distinguished group of both men and women from previous parliaments and current parliament. And so we would like when whoever the speaker is, that our other parliamentarians have their mics muted so that there is no interference. And we would like to keep the presentations on the topic down to about 10 minutes so that everybody can get an opportunity to speak. It is therefore my pleasure to invite our first speaker, Madam President, Honorable Alvina Reynolds. She has been the President of the Senate for 11 months now. She is a former Minister of Health, Wellness, Human Services, and Gender Relations during the period 2011 to 2016, and a Member of Parliament for Babonneau for the same period. She holds a Bachelor of Philosophy in Education and Professional Studies from the University of Birmingham and a Master of Arts in International Social Work and Community Development from the University of East London. Welcome, Madam President Alvina Reynolds.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayers. And let me acknowledge, of course, all past and present parliamentarians and Mr. Topier, Director of Universal Peace Federation, and all observers. Let me greet all of you on this International Day of Peace and extend peace to you and your household. To begin with, I took my guidance from Mr. Topier, who asked me to speak from the heart. So taking into consideration the theme, I've taken part of that, but mostly a little bit of what I see that we can do personally and collectively to develop peace in this nation and by extension, the world. Let me begin my presentation, it will not be 10 minutes, by sharing the words of a very special hymn, which serves as a guide for me in my life. It was written by Jill Jackson Miller in 1955. It is entitled, Let There Be Peace on Earth. And so I put it in context of country. The first few words read, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as our Father, brothers, and I add sisters, all are we. Let me walk with my brother and sister in perfect harmony. Verse 2, let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow, my oath, is to have peace begin with me. Harmony, the absence of disturbance, peace being maintained in my heart, my soul, my mind, my spirit, my entire being. And that is exhibited in my words, my thoughts, and my actions. It is demonstrated and portrayed by my words, the words that I utter, my thoughts and actions. And my responsibility as a person, as a citizen, is to share that peace with others. As an educator, to teach others about maintaining the peace. Wherever I find myself, accepting the words of Mahatma Gandhi to be the change that I want to see in the world, the change that I want to see in St. Lucia, to extend peace, to share peace, to help others achieve and appreciate that peace. How do I do this? How do I share this? As a citizen of this beautiful country, as an educator, as a former youth leader, a church member, praise and worship leader, a parliamentarian, I must first lead by example. I do so by embracing some universal values, some of them are, and displaying these values sincerely. The word sincere, Latin word meaning without wax, sine clara, without wax, by doing this sincerely. And that is one, displaying love, love for country, love for people of this country, whatever their background, whatever the political affiliation, whatever their religious affiliation, whatever, to demonstrate love for people, love for the environment. So love for country, love for people, love for the environment, protecting and not abusing people, the environment, country, not abusing their human rights, not abusing or misusing the environment, the resources that are within our country. By displaying, by working with honesty and truth, by doing good, another value, third, doing good and avoiding harm to others. By working and demonstrating accountability, working with integrity, being transparent in my undertaking. Non-violence, another value. Another universal value, which I truly embrace, is respect for others. Respect for people's property. Respect for people's opinions. Respect for people's personal space. Respect and appreciate people's differences, that everyone is unique, and appreciating that uniqueness. The question for me, how do I and how do we build a peaceful nation? The fact that I have embraced peace for me, peace in my mind, in my spirit, in my being, in my action, in my words and thoughts. It starts, one, by demonstrating that in the first institution, which is my home, among my family members, teaching the values of love, honesty, respect, charity, generosity, respect for each other, non-violence. Not preaching it, but teaching and living it. It is said we do not preach the gospel, we must live the gospel. By our actions, we teach our children in the home. Outside of the home, how do we teach? How do we demonstrate in the community? The places where we live, where we work, where we congregate, where we interact, where we socialize. Even I'm talking about also the media and social media. Getting involved at various levels to demonstrate those values, those universal values of love, showing love, working honestly, showing how honest we can be and truthful, respecting people in those spaces, being generous to those who are not so able or don't have enough, sharing with them. When I say share, sharing of our treasure, sharing of our time, and sharing of our talent, and doing so sincerely, sine clara, without wax. On a national level, being a good example, working for peace in our homes, in our communities, in our churches, in our political organizations. As a parliamentarian, helping to draft policies that will promote peace, that will promote unity, that will promote harmony, that will promote prosperity, helping to enact legislation that will promote peace in communities, in the society, in the country as a whole. As a parliamentarian, my responsibility is to listen and respond to the issues of citizens when they speak about those issues, those situations that disturb their peace, that affect them, their justice, their freedom to be, to do, and to respond accordingly. to try our best to help within our communities, young men and women whom we know personally, to take time to communicate with them, to sit with them, to listen and advise, give support when they call on us to help them find a way through life. There will always be the disagreements in life. We are all different. We all come from different backgrounds, different families, different communities, have different upbringing. And so there will be disagreements. But we can disagree peacefully. We can disagree respectfully. And we can always, with time and the right instruments, the right people, come to clear understanding. I want to share a bit from our national anthem, written by Father Charles Jess, an FMIA father. The final stanza. May the good Lord bless our island, guard his sons or guard us all from woe and harm. May our people live united, strong in soul and strong in arm. Justice, truth, and charity, our ideal forever be. I'm going back to strong in soul, strong spiritually, strong mentally, strong psychologically and emotionally. That strength of a people. To achieve that, we must work to achieve that. Put the necessary measures in place, the support structures in place to achieve that. For members of family, for members of community, members in church, that there will be peace mentally, psychologically, emotionally. There will be that stability. Not everyone will be strong spiritually, mentally, psychologically, or emotionally. But those of us who are strong enough, it is our responsibility to look out for those who are vulnerable, those who are maybe weaker, and to hold their hand and to guide them through this journey of life in this country and wherever we find ourselves. Strong in arm, physically. Let us help those who may be disabled. We may not be as strong as we are. Putting the necessary resources towards that, putting the necessary structures and agencies in place to support them, those who are not as strong physically, when we say strong in arm. And the ideas of justice, I speak of fairness in this country. Truth, we speak of honesty again, sincerity, sine clara, without wax. Charity, and it comes to the theme that speaks to prosperity. Caring, being generous, sharing of our time, our talent, and our treasure. To help build family, help build stronger communities, help build a stronger country. Once we have these in place and we continue to work towards these, I see peace being built. We don't preach peace all the time. We live peace. We live in peace. We be agents of peace. We demonstrate peace. I have to be a good example of an agent of peace. Wheresoever I may roam, I continue to say, let there be peace in this country and let it begin with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Senate President, for your inspiring opening presentation. I would like to continue with another honorable lady, the Honorable Emma Hippolyte. Honorable Emma Hippolyte is the Minister for Commerce, Manufacturing, Business Development, Cooperatives, and Consumer Affairs. She hails from Soufrière. She is the current representative for Soufrière-Forcejac as a member of Parliament. She was a member of the Senate from 2007 to 2011. She was the MP representing Gros-Islet from 2011 to 2016. In 2006, she was awarded the OBE from Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II for her services to the government and the people, the public service, which means the people of St. Lucia. It is my privilege to welcome Honorable Emma Hippolyte to make her remarks. You need to unmute, ma'am. No, you're still muted. No, you're still muted. Can we unmute?
Top, bottom left.
Right, I think you're there now. No, we're still not hearing you. Oh, we're still not, you're still muted.
Have you gone to the bottom left?
Yes.
Honorable Hippolyte, and click on the icon, the unmute icon.
She's on
That
mute,
little red mark.
I think, yeah.
I think she may need to select her mic. She's unmuted.
Yeah, she's on mute there.
Ah,
But I think the source of the mic would have to be.
If you have any earphone, you can take out maybe from the system. It will liberate the mic, maybe.
Oh, okay, your mic is come back muted again. Okay, what we can probably do, Honorable, since you're having some technical difficulties, is maybe try to log out and log back in, and then we will allow you to make your presentation a little later. Let me therefore invite the Honorable Leonard Montoute to make his presentation. Honorable Leonard Spider Montoute was the Minister for Equity, Social Justice, Empowerment, Youth Development, Sports, and Local Government from 2016 to 2021. As a Member of Parliament for Gros-Islet for that same period. Member of Parliament for Gros-Islet also from 2006 to 2011. Honorable Leonard Montoute was Minister for Social Transformation, Public Service, Human Resource Development, and Youth and Sports from 2006 to 2011. He is currently the PRO in office of the Leader of the Opposition. And may I say that I was privileged to serve in cabinet with Mr. Montoute back in 2006 to 2011. It is therefore my privilege to invite Honorable Spider Montoute to make his presentation.
Thank you very much, and good evening to everyone. Let me begin by wishing everyone a happy and peaceful International Day of Peace. This observance of the day provides us an opportunity for us to reflect, take stock, and reconsider our position as individuals, as a nation, and as mankind. This year's theme, interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universally shared values as a foundation for peace in our nation, suggests a focal point from which we can premise our quest for peace in St. Lucia. In unraveling our turmoils, unrest, and disagreements, that must be borne in mind when we plan, decide, and act. Humans' gregarious nature catalyzes the need to come together, socialize, and ultimately form communities. Along the way, we recognize that in fulfillment, many of our needs and wants, we require the support, assistance, and collaboration of others in one form or another. This interdependence brings us to the stark realization that to succeed, there must be reciprocity, balance, and a general understanding of compromise. To achieve those objectives, our interactions must be tempered by fairness, mutual respect, and cooperation. We must learn to manage the conflict between impulsive self-centeredness and the more noble appeal to care for our fellow humans. If we foster and nurture love, not only for ourselves, but also for each other, the symbiosis in our relations would be made much smoother and richer, with a more natural and automatic appreciation one to another. Where there is incongruence stemming from diverse values, norms, or beliefs, the principles of mutual respect, tolerance, and understanding should guide our deliberations. To the extent that we can manage to avoid infringements or abuses, our coexistence would be made that much easier and our interactions far more peaceful. As we become community, however, new challenges emerge and greater complexity in maintaining an equilibrium arises. Communities do not remain static, and as with every aspect of life, changes are inevitable. The more dynamic the community, the healthier the community. We must therefore guard against the potential inequalities that this growth and dynamism can give rise to. Here is where the concept of mutual prosperity must be employed. Disaffected members of the community will harbor ill feelings of being sidelined, cheated, and left behind. As the community grows, mutual prosperity may not guarantee an equal standing to all in terms of wealth and success, but there must at least be a system of equal opportunity for all. While a meritocracy may not always be the ideal, it should be the general rule governing access to opportunity with regard to the reality of some individuals not being equipped to measure up to the challenges of life without support. Society must pay due recognition to that fact and provide some safety nets to offset the shortcomings. Failing to do so will result in great disparities between those who can compete and those less capable. Emanating out of such a situation is abject poverty, deprivation, and even isolation of a section of the society. These are the people who, as a result of their plight, resort to crime, violence, and antisocial behavior. Everyone is impacted when this arises, and the community is worse off for it. It is therefore incumbent on us all, in the same spirit of caring for each other, to lend a hand in assisting especially those who cannot help themselves. Contrary to the belief that this approach will create dependency, wealth distribution brings about greater independence, protects human dignity, and fosters more self-pride for the individual, which redounds to the greater benefit of the community as a whole. This approach creates an upward spiral to prosperity, breeding widespread contentment and more fertile environment for peace. As our communities become more sophisticated, societal laws, rules, regulations have to be established at an institutional level. This becomes necessary as a means of safeguarding rights, interests, freedoms, and overall order in our society. Given that there will always be a diversity in views, interests, and positions, society will adopt the prevailing universally accepted or suitable values over the individual interest. This is where, as individuals functioning in a wider society, must come to terms with the reality that we can't always have it our way. Discipline and conformity is here required, with the understanding that the greater good must of necessity be served above individual interests. The adoption of systems of government, a judicial system, and a social code is established and adopted by our societies, and that is to maintain order, structure, and civility. The universality of the values and the extent of the societal embrace will largely determine the success and functionality of that society where they are applied. The adoption of the values will in part be predicated on its utility to society and the extent to which it serves the individuals in a just and equitable way. This is supposed to protect the weak from the strong, the privileged from the underprivileged, and society from turning on itself. The majority will have their way, while at the same time, the rights of the minority is not trampled. It is very important that the custodians of our institutions and authorities maintain fairness, integrity, and impartiality in the execution of their roles while upholding the expected standards that they help implement. If we as St. Lucians are to witness a brighter future of peace and tranquility, we must start as individuals to play our parts and take responsibility. Our communities must become more engaged and impactful, and our societal institutions and authorities must be seen to execute their roles with justice and equity. Only then will peace reign pervasively in our Helen of the West. Peace and love to St. Lucia. Thank you.
You're muted, Mr. Mayers.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you very much, Honorable Spider-Montut, for your presentation. Is Honorable Emma Hippolyte ready to make her presentation?
Maybe Honorable Hippolyte, you need to log out, go out of the system and then come back.
Already did.
Already did?
Okay, so we'll move on and then come back to Honorable Hippolyte. I would like at this time to invite our next presenter, Dr. Alison Jean. Senator Jean is a member of the current Senate. She has served in the public service for more than 30 years in various positions and capacities. She is currently the Chief Executive Officer of the National Utilities and Regulatory Commission. She was conferred the Honorary Doctorate of Humane Letters by the Southwestern Christian College in Terrell, Texas, in recognition of her courageous body of work and passionate advocacy as she demonstrated to the world a mother's brand of criminal justice reform. It is my pleasure to invite Senator Alison Jean to make her presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Master of Ceremonies. And good evening, everyone. I want to wish every one of you a happy International Day of Peace. I consider myself an amateur in the parliamentary environment, having been appointed as a government representative senator in October of last year, I accepted the invitation to the Senate because I thought that it would be a good opportunity for me to represent my country in the legislature, in creating laws that would impact the people with a view to ensuring that we live in a better place. As parliamentarians, or as a parliamentarian, I consider myself as one who is looked up to by society, and the cue is taken from us as leaders. And therefore, what we demonstrate to our citizens is what many of them emulate. And so when I look at the theme, I want to pull out specifically, I think somebody's mic is on. I want to pull out the word interdependence specifically, because I believe it is very profound when we apply that word interdependence. What comes to my mind is the saying, no man is an island. And that each and every one of us, though dependent in our own selves, but we have to rely on each other in order for us to achieve success, in order for us to achieve our goals, our vision, and whatever we want to do in life. So interdependence, leaning on each other, is what I believe is important in order for us to grow and to get to where we want to go. So the journey that we want to embark on cannot be done by ourselves, but requires each other. Now, we are sitting, we on this webinar, and there are parliamentarians, former parliamentarians and current ones who might be on, who are on different sides. But I see all of us with one goal, and that is to serve the people of St. Lucia. And so I believe we can have differences in philosophies, differences in interpretations, differences in strategies of how things should be done. But the end goal is to make St. Lucia a better place. And so we, I believe, need to respect each other. There must be mutual respect. There must be general respect for each other so that we can disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable. We can have a difference of opinion, but we should not be attacking each other personally, because each and every one of us come with, first of all, the courage to put ourselves forward to serve the people. And that in itself, even before I took up the appointment in the Senate, I have always admired every single politician, because I believe it takes really brave, and it's a brave and courageous act to put oneself up for public office. And so when that individual, win or lose, emerges after an election, there ought to be respect for that individual. So when there is disagreement or differences, it ought to be handled in a civil way. I believe we're in a society where we are looked upon by the individuals in society, and therefore what we portray as leaders is what is going to pervade our society. So if the people of our country recognize that we are calling each other names and we are bashing each other, then they will take the cue of that and there will not be peace. So for us to prevail, for peace to prevail in our land, we are the ones who have to really foster peace by our actions, by our words, by the things that we say, whether in the media or otherwise, so that there can be that emulation of the values that we portray. And these positive values will permeate through our society. When if we look at young people, maybe our own children, if they notice that they're in a hostile home, then of course, they will go out of the home and they will continue hostility. I see that similarly for those of us who put ourselves out for public office. Whatever hostility they see among us, the rest of society will follow. And so it sometimes can be regarded as hypocritical for us to be bashing others in the public and then afterwards say we are moving on with peace, or we would like peace. I believe peace must continue, our values must continue. I am a Christian, and I say every day that I am not a Sunday Christian. I am not a Christian only when I wear my my church clothes on a Sunday. And when I take it out later in the evening, then I can do whatever I want. Wherever I go, I'm supposed to carry my Christian values. And so we say that we live in a Christian society, and therefore our values must follow us wherever we go, or else we are going to be viewed as hypocrites. And the mixed signals that we are sending will confuse our citizens, and it will be difficult for us to control them. I look at the crime situation, and many times I have been questioned by the media on my views relating to crime. And perhaps because I lost a son to a criminal offense, that most people believe that I have a view on it. And I say in our country, St. Lucia, in order for us to tackle the crime situation, we have to look at it from all spheres. From the minor traffic offense, from the improper parking, from the swearing words that we use in open, all of these contribute to crime. And so we cannot be looking at crime only at one who raises a weapon on another, but we have to look at it from all the other angles. Obedience to the law, respect for each other, zero tolerance for corruption, and all of these things must go together with what we want to portray if we are to achieve any peace in our society. So I commend the United Nations and the several agents for promoting the issue of peace. But like Sister Alvina Reynolds said, peace must begin with me. And it must begin through my actions and through my words, even through my thoughts, because as the Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So anytime words come out from people's mouths, I believe that it came from the heart. It was thought of. And so we have to wean ourselves from the negativity, like the young people say, from the negative vibes. Let us portray a more positive atmosphere in our society. Let us be respectful of each other, even though we do not share the same views. Because granted, I don't share the same view. I served in the public service for 30 plus years. And my sojourn transcended administrations. I worked with Prime Minister Sir John Compton, Dr. Von Lewis, Dr. Kenny Anthony, Mr. Alan Chasney, and right now in the Senate with Honorable Philip J. Pierre. In fact, I serve as permanent secretary to Honorable Philip J. Pierre. But if I can challenge anyone who would say that I played politics in my life in the public service, because I went with the philosophy that I came to serve the people of St. Lucia, not any politician, not any political party. During my time at the public service, I never went in and wore any symbol that represented any political party. As a matter of fact, when I left the public service, it was very difficult for me initially, for me to show my outward association to the party that I support. And so I believe that needs to be respected. We're not on the same sides. We share different views, we share different philosophies, but we must be able to respect each other and ultimately look towards serving the people of St. Lucia with a view to making our country a better place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jean, for your presentation. Let me try to get back to Honorable Hippolyte. Are you ready this time, Minister?
Well, I don't know. You tell me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear this time.
I had to use my phone now.
Perseverance.
I had to use my phone, yes. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, my esteemed fellow panelists, colleague parliamentarians, peace activists and agencies, advocates and citizens around the world, citizens of St. Lucia. I wish to join you in the observance of the UN International Day of Peace 2023. I wish all of you a peaceful International Day of Peace. Given the enormity of this subject, I am indeed very thankful and honored to have been invited to serve as a panelist on this very important occasion and to contribute to the work of the Universal Peace Federation. Current geopolitical, cultural, environmental, and other developments taking place in our world at this crucial juncture in our history have sounded the alarm bell, signaling the need for us to elevate the subject of peace and its preservation high on our list of priorities for urgent attention and collective action. Indeed, the UN Charter leads the way and accords the highest level of importance to peace and security, which is one of the 4 pillars which underpin the UN Charter and is a core principle in its preamble. In my short presentation, I will focus on the need for renewed effort to promote and sustain peace around the world, especially in St. Lucia. Try to speak a bit on the source of conflict and possible remedies. And thirdly, the mutual prosperity and shared values as a foundation for peace, which is our theme. As a consequence of growing threats to the fragile peace and stability enjoyed by our country and region, there is urgent need for us as parliamentarians to do all we can to strengthen, protect, and promote the virtue of peace in our world and in our country. This is because peace is a universal good which transcends all circumstances and provides the most desirable and optimal state of affairs needed for humanity to thrive on this planet in the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. For this reason, I want to join the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres, with his clarion call for action and for us to renew and redouble our efforts to build and sustain peace in the world and in St. Lucia. The world is increasingly becoming polarized as a result of differences in political, regional, cultural, socioeconomic, and ideological views and perspectives. The reasons for conflicts are many and are typically rooted in a lack of tolerance and understanding due to differences of one kind or another. However, the famous philosopher Albert Einstein reminded us that peace cannot be kept by force, but by understanding. So herein lies a prescription to avoid unnecessary conflict, because as we squabble over differences, we often miss the fact that we have more in common to unite us than that which divides us. Hence, differences or diversities must not be seen as a threat, but as a source of enrichment and part of the wider range of possibilities in the complex tapestry of life. Notwithstanding, the threats to peace are all around us and come in many forms, including climate change, terrorism, cyber warfare, weapons of mass destruction, poverty, transborder criminal activities, racism, religious extremism, and social tension around sexual orientation and identity-related issues. Another perhaps growing and equally potent threat to peace, noted by President Obama, emanates from the under-regulated use of information and communication technology, and the use of virtual platforms to foment discord and incite disunity in and amongst our societies through the propagation of mis- and disinformation via social media. In the face of this challenge, we must find a balance between freedom of expression as a democratic right against the need for ensuring civil social responsibility and harmony. And while there is no single or simple remedy to these challenges, we must all continue to work assiduously within our respective jurisdictions to suppress them, especially in the formative stages, before they gestate and mushroom into unmanageable cancers or chasms of division and long-lasting crisis. It is imperative that we do so because, as the saying goes, a stitch in time saves 9. And if we do not heed the lessons of time, we are doomed to repeat them. We have all seen the devastation and extensive suffering caused by conflict, and thus we must fight for peace if we are to have peace. This fight, as our theme mandates us to do, requires that we return to our shared values and principles of good governance, needed to build strong, independent institutions, especially the media and the judiciary, which provide important checks against potential abuse of our conflict-prone democratic systems. In so doing, we must reaffirm the view that a rules-based international order founded on shared values and the principle of constructive engagement through dialogue and diplomacy remain the preferred means to resolve our differences and maintaining peace. Importantly, as we seek to build a foundation for a more peaceful future for our troubled world, we need to socialize and inculcate among the youth and leaders of tomorrow the value of tolerance, responsible behavior, respect for each other, and conflict resolution skills, including the embrace of diversity and respect for the rights of others. And while I offer no guaranteed antidotes to conflicts or the threats to peace, I think we can nonetheless agree on a few things. that a world of higher level of distributive justice and lower levels of income inequality, together with higher rates of inclusion and participation in the success and triumphal march of society and its various benefits, will correlate positively with the attainment of peace between and amongst the people of the world, as well within our own society in St. Lucia. We can also agree that credible action and progress towards the attainment of a number of the SDGs, in particular, those aimed at reducing poverty levels, various forms of injustices, human suffering, and environmental degradation, will likewise help to reduce conflict and thereby increase levels of peace in our country and by extension, the world. It is therefore the responsibility of each of us as parliamentarians to be champions and advocates for peace through our actions, utterances, and public statements. As Eleanor Roosevelt, the wife of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, once said, and I quote, "It isn't enough to talk about peace. One must believe in it. And it isn't enough to believe in it. One must work at it." End of quote. End of quote. I therefore conclude with the prophetic lines by our own Caribbean reggae icon, Bob Marley, with his passionate plea for peace in his song entitled War, in which he says that until the philosophy which holds one race superior and another inferior is discredited and abandoned, there will be war. Likewise, he contends that until all citizens are treated equally and the basic human rights are guaranteed without regard to race, there will be war. He further asserts that until we address these issues, the dream of lasting peace and world citizenship will be but a fleeting illusion to be pursued, but never attained. Colleagues, I want to add that in order to have peace, we must first exert love. And the speakers before me have all mentioned it. We must be our brother's keeper. We must have compassion. We must be able to provide a helping hand. As parliamentarians, we have a responsibility to put together a legislative and governance framework that is going to allow us to raise every member of society. It is when we do this, that responsibility that we have in terms of ensuring that we use the resources of our state properly, that we have transparency, accountability, that we denounce corruption, that we shun corruption, and that we provide each individual, each citizen, we address them where they are, and we give them a helping hand to improve the standard of living. That is what is required. If we do not do so, then we will not be contributing to peace. So, ladies and gentlemen, let there be peace on earth. Let there be peace in St. Lucia, and let it begin with you. Let it begin with me. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Hippolyte, for your presentation. We'll move right ahead to Dr. Adrian Auger. Dr. Adrian Auger was an independent senator in the Senate of St. Lucia during the period 2016 to 2021. Adrian is an award-winning poet and producer. He is the 2010 Caribbean Laureate for Arts and Letters as awarded by the Answer Foundation. Adrian is also a development economist. In October of 2012, he received an honorary doctorate from the University of the West Indies for his signal work in both economics and the arts. He is the founder and managing director of Landmark Events, and he is a man of many talents. It's my privilege to invite Dr. Adrian Auger to make his presentation.
I trust everyone can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Master of Ceremonies. If it's not obvious to you all right now, I'm actually driving, and so I will apologize in advance for any break in transmission. I would like to speak a little bit about peace, and I would like to thank all of you for coming together to discuss this very important subject. The pursuit of peace requires one thing possibly above all other things, and that is the subjugation of the ego, the diminishing of the I in favor of the we, of the few in favor of the many, of the rich in favor of the poor, of the big in favor of the small. That requires a kind of enlightenment, which can be no accident. It is an enlightenment which has to be ingrained, it has to be embraced, it has to be shared, inculcated, actively pursued. And society which fails to do that is going to be perpetually at war. Many wise words have been spoken this evening about such things. And my concern, and actually my agreement to be on this panel, was motivated by some words in the preamble, in the advertisement, about the possibility of patriotism being a universal truth, a universal condition. A shared identity might be a peace-building thing. And I've tried to apply this to my country and the notion of how we feel about home, and ask myself whether or not that is changing into something that will drive peace, will drive shared identity, will drive tolerance, will drive diversity, peaceful diversity. And I came away with more worries than I started. It seems to me that enlightenment becoming more distant as we grow digital. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
As we grow more, as we grow more digital, as we lose a certain communication with the landscape that gave us birth, and the national anthem has been referred to at least once this evening. This thing that used to bind us is becoming a distant concept, is becoming a distant prospect, because landscape in itself will not be enough. It is how we feel in the landscape that will bind us together as people of the same place, of the same ilk, of the same thinking, of the same values. And I don't think that we are doing a very good job, either at the island level or at the regional level, of building and cementing and reinforcing those bridges, which inevitably are our bridges to peace. If we are of the same place and we are of the same mind, then we may be of the same heart, and we may be interested in things larger than ourselves. And I think it is that dialogue which we have lost or are losing, and which has poisoned our politics and poisoned our communities. We need to return to a notion of ourselves and how we feel in our country that binds us together for the sake of peace, for the sake of love, for the sake of cohabitation, for the sake of tolerance. And despite the pretty words, we have to admit that politics is among the most divisive thing in our country. It attracts the vilest expressions of hate and disdain and disrespect. And our leaders who speak beautifully on International Day of Peace do not sanction their agents, heirs, and successors to say, no, this is not acceptable, that we should conduct ourselves in better ways, that we should exhibit more tolerance and more discipline and more respect. And we flagellate our opponents in the vilest terms. And we hold this up as an example to 180,000 people, and then tell them to get high on principle when practice has fallen so low. It is time, I think, to, as a nation, pursue an entirely different agenda, what I sometimes refer to as enlightenment and prosperity, not just a mutual, not just a physical or material prosperity, but a prosperity of our own well-being, our elevation of our society to higher ideals, our raising of minds and bodies and spirits to things larger than the individual agenda. And this is where peace fails. Because for me to care about my brother, I must be of the same heart and soul and mind and language, where we can communicate that caring, we can communicate that purpose higher than ourselves. Whether you call it God or peace or universality or tolerance or diversity or any of those wonderful things, there must be a language for communication. There must be an arena for communication. There must be opportunity for communication. And we are losing that. And how I want to return for a minute to how we feel in our country is the thing that is going to bind us. It's not just the place, but how we feel. Our sense of identity, our sense of belonging, our sense of commonality, our sense of common aspirations and values, that we are all at the end of the day and at the beginning of the day in the same boat, engaged in a purpose larger than ourselves, larger than our private agendas, that your son and my daughter and my mother and your aunt and my grandmother and your stepsister are all connected in a St. Lucian-ness, which is an elevated, aspirational, motivational sort of experience. And this is what we are not teaching. We are not investing in education sufficiently and conflict resolution and not removing the impediments which keep us apart as a society. We are building walls instead of breaking them down. And until we change that, first in our politics, because leadership is important, example is important. Instruction does not work as well as example. And fine words are beautiful, yes, especially on International Day of Peace, but how are we beginning that process with us, as has been said by Honorable Alvina? How do we start that process with us? How do we stop the winner take all for this philosophy around politics? How do we really make this about St. Lucia, about nation, about ethics? We really need to revisit the efficacy of our democracy in ways that truly raise the disadvantaged and the poor and the less privileged. Our systems of governance, are they tolerant? Most of the time, a lot of people don't feel that way. I want to leave you with a statistic. A couple of days ago, I addressed 60 students at the SCA&Caribbean Community College. And I asked, how many of you will journey on out of St. Lucia after you finished here? 98% of them said they would leave. More than 50% of them said they would not return because they felt no resonance in the country. They felt no relevance. And the conversation inevitably went on to the exclusion of our politics. I want to leave you with that as we talk about peace and how we make our democracy, how we make our ecosystem a place where all can thrive, not just the some, not just the fortunate, not just the favored, not just the few, but all, our old, our marginalized, our vulnerable, our unhealthy, our poor. We need to rethink this economic development formula that we have adopted wholesale, and which we are promulgating without much thinking, year after year, regime after regime. We're not changing equity within our society. Our democracy is becoming less and less participatory, and by definition, less and less peaceful, because it does not bring us to a higher purpose. And that higher purpose should be country and a peaceful place for all to prosper towards enlightenment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adrian, for your presentation. Last but not least, I would like to call on a former colleague, Dr. Gail Rigobert. Dr. Rigobert was Minister of Education, Innovation, Gender Relations, and Sustainable Development from 2016 to 2021. She was a member of Parliament for Micoud North from 2011 to 2021. Member of the Senate from 2006 to 2011. Before this, she was a lecturer at the University of the West Indies in Government and International Relations. And in 2007, she received a Doctor of Philosophy degree in International Relations from UWI St. Augustine, and is the author of the book, Bridging the Digital Divide: Prospects for Caribbean Development in the Techno-Economic Paradigm. It's my privilege to welcome Dr. Rigobert to make her presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, colleagues. A peaceful evening to everyone on this International Day of Peace. Let me congratulate the International Association of Parliamentarians for Peace and the Universal Peace Federation for convening this all-important panel to discuss something that many of us grapple with. I've had the privilege of listening to all of you, and the first thing that struck me is that we use the word peace every day, all the time, loosely. It is ubiquitous. And to the extent that one wonders, what is the definition of peace? Is it an abstract concept? Is it utopian? Is it wishful thinking? Does it mean the absence of war? What do we mean by peace? And it is from there that I wish to employ a framework that I have long toyed with, which considers peace as the absence of violence indeed, but to go further to operationalize a framework for violence to mean more than just direct violence, as many of us have referred to direct violence in the main, but to suggest that we give due consideration to other aspects of violence, such as indirect violence, cultural violence, structural violence, and I use those largely in the way that one of the main founding fathers of peace would have used them back in the 1950s and 60s. But that framework is still so very relevant today. And so we avoid the temptation to fall within the dualism or the binaryism of peace versus violence, and peace meaning the absence of violence, without further interrogating what we mean by violence. This is even more important within the current context, given that we live largely in a digital world, and the extent to which social media, which is largely ungoverned, allows for self-expression in a way that we had not seen previously. It means, therefore, that the onus rests with us as individuals, but very importantly, as leaders, to set the tone as to what is permissible, what is tolerable, not only through the formal framework of setting of regulations and laws, but by practice, which all of you alluded to in your respective presentations. So I ask your kind permission to depart from the framework of considering peace as the absence of war or violence to mean direct violence, and to instead embrace a more diverse, multifaceted definition of violence to incorporate notions of cultural, structural, and indirect violence. In fact, if we are to cast a glance at what we see unfolding on social media, what we see unfolding in the home, the incidents of domestic violence, the way in which we treat with incidents of rape, for example, the nature and tone of verbal exchanges, I have reason to believe that even within the context of the genesis of this whole day to commemorate peace, to mean the absence of war or direct violence, that we are missing a very important component of peace. That direct violence is the final manifestation of indirect cultural and structural violence. In the way that we consider issues of distributive justice, issues of inequity and inequality, gender disparities, in the way that we concern ourselves with the extent to which we are able to say boldly and confidently that we have met many of the benchmarks as spelled out within the SDGs, or if we haven't, why not? And whether peace as a variable itself is critical to the extent to which we can claim to have achieved any significant gains with realizing what is contained within the various sustainable development goals. In that regard, therefore, when we speak of violence And we speak automatically or refer almost intuitively to the many nations that are currently engaged in war. Between 27 to 32 nations are currently engaged in war. There are over 100 conflicts of one kind or another. 9.2% of the world, or 719 million people, live on less than US $2.15 a day. How do we convey notions of peace to these people? In the US alone, 11.6% of the population lived in poverty back in 2021. I'm sure that number has not changed dramatically in the last year. A quarter of humanity lives in conflict or conflict-affected areas. 25%, that is 25% of the world's population. And 84 million people were forcibly displaced because of conflict. The Geneva Academy is currently monitoring over 110 armed conflicts. And I can reference the shadow pandemic that emerged within the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. The number of women, children, vulnerable persons who were not only economically displaced, but also suffered at the hands of their abusers some form of direct violence. So when we speak of peace to mean the absence of violence, I beg of us to consider violence in its multifacetedness as more than just direct violence, but cultural violence. When we speak of the various ethnic conflicts, the various religious conflicts, when we think of violent verbal exchanges, many of us, for example, miss the fact that there's so much violence that is meted out to unsuspecting victims through song, through various art forms. The extent to which violence not only means that one is fearful for one's physical well-being, but one may also be fearful for one's peace of mind, freedom to express oneself, freedom of movement. And maybe 10 or 15 years ago, when I would have engaged in discussions on peace and violence, perhaps I would not have been so sentimental about it had I not experienced what I experienced as a politician. And that is the extent to which there is so much verbal violence in this country that is normalized because of the cultural violence that apparently legitimizes it as okay or coming with the territory. So somehow you have to develop a certain level of tolerance and acceptance of it. And it is that young people, the next generation, this generation needs to be encouraged to think about, because I am convinced that the direct violence that concerns many of us is but the final manifestation of many other forms of violence that would have preceded that final act of direct violence. Thank you for listening. I'll stop here for now and invite us all in our own little way, borrowing from one of my favorite Catholic hymns, if I may, make me a channel of your peace, and make me a channel of your peace, and where there is hatred, let me sow love. And we know the rest of the hymn. I'm sure we're all very familiar with it. In the same way that other colleagues referenced, let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for inviting me to participate. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Begabet. Each of you, from your own perspective, did justice to the theme today. Note that we had a parliamentary meeting and it was done with mutual respect, mutual understanding. And I think we lived what the theme was. We listened, and hopefully we appreciated the input of everyone. Everyone quoted from different persons, but I would just like to mention some of the quotes coming from yourselves as you made your presentations. Adrian talked about the subjugation of ego, and many times ego stands in the way of understanding and peace, because ego, like pride, comes before destruction, as the good book tells us. We heard that peace cannot be kept by force, but by understanding. And in order to have peace, we must exert love. In the interdependence, and I had this down to mention as in my closing remarks, that no man is an island and no man stands alone. We each need each other at some point in time. We are all each other's keeper. And in order to have peace, we must exert love. And it must not be just saying that we want peace, but it must begin with us. We must be the example that we expect, especially the youth, to follow. It cannot be that we will demand it from them and we are exerting something else. So if we want to see peace, we must live it. We must be the example that we expect from others. I've always said that, what happens in the wider society or what happens at home is a microcosm of what happens in the wider society. And if we want to see peace in our island, if we want to see peace in the world, it must begin with us. As part of our theme, interdependence, we heard that we are on the same boat and we must learn to cooperate, to respect, and to appreciate one another. We may not always agree with each other's point of view, but we should learn to accept that there is another view to ours. And we can listen and we can respect the other person's point of view, because at the end of the day, we express our views because we mean well and we want to see our country grow. We want to see peace in the world. And I must say, if we want to see peace in the world, it must begin with us. So tonight, as we bring curtains on our deliberation, I wish to thank each of you for your contribution. I want to thank the World Peace Federation for putting on this important dialogue tonight. And I'm sure that there will be other opportunities where we can share in more detail our thoughts and have more interaction. We did not have the time tonight to cross-examine each other's points of view, but I'm sure we'll be able to do that at another time and conduct it in the same manner that we did tonight. So on this day, where the world is celebrating International Peace Day, I wish you a peaceful evening and thank you so much for your presentation and your participation. And let there be peace on earth, let there be peace in our country, and let it begin with us. Thank you very much. I'd like to invite Mr.
Thank you very much.
Okay, are you available to make some few closing remarks?
Yes, okay. Eliezer, could you put us on a gallery together that we can see each other together?
Yeah, unfortunately, Dr. Auger had to leave, so he won't be able to be at the gallery.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time. It's an important discussion. Of course, there is a lot to discuss, but it was beautiful to see each one expressing from their own experience and point of view. I think it's a very respectable. Everyone has something to say. And when we start to listen to each other, that's already bring hope. Just that, in fact. So really, thank you very much, all of you. I know that for many of you, it was really making a special effort. The Universal Peace Federation is very grateful for all what you do in your parliamentary life and daily life. And I got the message, most of you, is that we have to exemplify peace and loving, and then we can make a beautiful St. Lucia. So thank you very much. And that's only a beginning, I believe. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you and good night.
Good night.